starting point, like anything reserved in nature, or?
Just down on the river.
Okay.
I don't know what the title is. Botanical confusion.
But to use that as a starting point, though, and then to come up with something that's that's very individual. Yeah, I like that.
Thank you. Jordy?
Okay, another watercolor. I like the handling. Because I think that what grabbed me about this was just the involvement of the artist in the making of this thing. I mean, when you look at this, you can really you have a sense of somebody really engaged in the making of this piece, and I liked that. And then just the working, you can the feeling of processing this thing is very attractive to me. It doesn't. Well, I don't know. It seemed like it was. There was some time involved here. You know, I mean, to bring this to bring this image about. You know, and I like that. And I think it really exploited the medium in a really rich way. So yeah, all of you do on that stuff is a narrow range of colors, but well exploited. We have two back here, and I have to admit, I've never done anything with glass, all right, and I've never done anything with ceramics, so, and from this category, I chose to, and intuition plays a big part in all of this. I mean, you know, art to a certain degree, art's a very subjective thing, right? I mean, but there are standards out there, and there are things that we do have a basis for judging and for comparing things, you know. And even you know when you consider art elements, principles of design. I mean, those things that we use to put a thing together, how we choose to put it together. How well any artist works within a certain set of restrictions, you know. So even though I'm not familiar with certain media, I'm still basing it on. I think I'm looking at things with an educated eye, which is why I awarded prizes to this piece of glass here. And
Paul Schmidt, brother. First place. Somebody walked away with this. Paula Jordan. What don't you do? Here you go. Yes, ma'am.
It's all right. I
There you
can.
go.
Got it?
There you go.
I don't, you know, does anybody have any questions? Do we want to walk through maybe and so we can stop at some things? Or does anyone have any questions for me? And or as we're looking at some other artwork or artwork that we've already seen, if anybody has any comments they'd like to make too, I mean, I think it's, you know, share them. I think that's
question.
Yeah.
Big thing you did, they were talking about, did you ever keep track of your hours on this?
Oh, no, I mean, I know I'm losing money. I pretty much lose money on everything that I do. They're very, it's very labor intensive now. It shouldn't have taken me as long as it did, because I mean, Michelangelo did the system of ceiling, in as much time. But there's a guy that comes to my life drawing group, and he's working on a portrait, and he's already got 5 years in on this portrait. So that's too long. Because I kind of I was a little bit timid, and I wasn't quite sure how to approach this really ambitious project. The next one I think would go faster, but I just wasn't quite sure. It's just flying by the seat of my pants the whole time, figuring it out as I go, and things like building a stretcher frame in my studio, 65, 60, 70 feet long, and stretching a single piece of canvas that big, and then gessoing it and restretching it, and putting a second coat of it was an enormous task, and just how do I get it off my wall and getting it over to the theater, and so figuring out all of that stuff. Yeah, it was quite labor intensive, but next time around I have to get more than twice as much as I got for that one to make it worth my while. But anyway, so
Do you have any suggestions for a young guy?
No.
I can't draw a straight line.
when I was 17, Norman Rockwell was still alive, and so I wrote him. I wrote him a letter asking him if he was taking any students, and he wrote me back, but I'll never get the letter back because it's in my former mother-in-law's attic, and I think it's lost forever. But it was on his Stockbridge, Massachusetts stationery, and he was about, I don't know, he died maybe 4 years later. So he did say, he suggested getting to New York, getting an agent. In terms of education, he didn't really have much to say, but he wasn't taking students at the time. It's a tough question, but the reason that it's tough is because finding somebody that knows what they're talking about in terms of teaching, in terms of art fundamentals, and art fundamentals are something that I really, really like, and my approach is very kind of traditional, very academic. It's not easy, but I think once you learn certain tools, you can go anywhere with it. You can do anything you want. What I endeavor to do is to teach young artists, to give them the tools that they can see whatever is in their mind's eye. You can see it up here, you can draw it. Okay? I think that's the ultimate freedom, So learning the basics about perception, and drawing is really all about perception. But I'm to a large degree self-taught. There's a lot of trial and error. But I also did have a couple of good teachers. It wasn't so much what they taught me, but I think a good teacher, more than anything, kind of inspires you to teach yourself to a great degree. I spent a lot of time in books, a lot of time in the library, and a lot of time looking. I spent, in terms of painting, I spent so much time. I knew the museum, the Toledo Museum of Art. I knew where every painting was in every gallery, and I would spend my time looking at those, and I would look at them, and I would look at them and try and get a sense of how they were constructed from the inside out, but this is a very traditional approach to painting, where a piece of canvas is, you've got a ground on it, and you have an imprimatur, a coloring of the ground, and then how do they apply like white paint, the underpainting, but I would look at the painting and I'd just look for glimpses, look for little clues as to how that painting was put together, and so that's kind of like how I learned, and I spent a lot of time in books. Now there are shorter ways, but I think the thing is to find somebody that can help you with that.